¿Qué pasa, campeones? Welcome to the Churros y Tácticas Podcast. It is Friday, the 7th of July. It's a two-parter this time, once again. One for the free listeners and one for the loyal listeners. And I want to start off today with a little shout-out, a little tribute to my grandmama, the last standing of the four grandparents that I've been very lucky to have until today. The last of my grandparents, my grandmama on the Dutch side, has passed away a couple hours ago. So rest in peace to Omi. 96 years of age, Kiyan. As I said, I have been lucky to have had four grandparents, and the last one passing away with at 41 years of age. You know, she's I don't know if you have that with your kids, but my kids got to know my grandparents, so they're great grandparents. That's something that we see more and more, I think, in today's society, or maybe not. I don't know, kids, or nowadays people having kids later as well. So maybe this trend will change. But that's all besides the point. Leaving us was a beautiful person, loving, caring person. And she's joining Hans Wilmar Lorijn, my grandfather, up in the clouds somewhere, hopefully. And we'll be busting his balls once again in the afterlife. So Omi, big kus, hele dikke kus to you. Ik hou van je. I love you. And, you know, you're going to be missed.
Rest in peace from me as well, and all the Churros family. Diego's grandma is our grandma. So much love to you and your family, buddy.
Thank you, bud. Just out of curiosity, did your boys meet your grandparents? Do they have great grandparents, or have your parents your grandparents passed away?
They have two great grandparents that are alive that they've met. So one on each side of the family. They're great grandmothers. They know. Yeah. Yeah, it's a special, right? So like anytime they're together, it's like you take a bunch of pictures, videos, because you never know. Like this is like such a special time in history. Like it's like a passing moment that you may never get again. So yeah, it's definitely special, right?
I think it is. You know, the first time that it kind of hit me, I was like, wow, this is your great grandparents, because it's almost like, you know, my parents, their grandparents aren't really grandparents, and then those become these are your grandparents. It's like, no, wait, they're a step higher up the ranks. Even it's you're talking great grandparents, and like I said, I don't know if that trend will continue, because I do feel that people are more preoccupied getting kids later now.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the numbers, and I don't know what the data says, but it does feel like, just looking around, it does feel that way.
Mm-hmm. It does, right? Okay.
Yeah. But I don't know if that's backed up by the numbers, but it does feel that way. Yeah. I mean, like back in the day, like, you know, when with my grandparents in Iran, it was extremely common that not only would you marry at like 15, right, but you'd also have like 7, 8, 9, 10 kids. And it's just like, so like, you know, I had a ton of cousins. My kids are going to have like a couple cousins maybe, you know?
Right. Yeah.
It's just different now.
Exactly. And from the topic of grandparents, Kiyan, why don't we segue into, I would say Güler, no? Arda Güler.
I was trying to figure out, like, how do you segue this from grandparents to Güler?
From grandparents to Gülers. The kid that, you know, a month ago, none of us ever heard about. I'll go on a limb and say that you didn't either, even though, you know, you're much more in tune with the international scene than I am. But that then, of course, became a game of tug and war, and between not just Barca Madrid, there were so many clubs involved. At some point, even Sevilla was announcing that they were going to sign him. Dortmund was announcing it. Leipzig. Then it was the Premier League teams. Then Barca said, it's a done deal thanks to Deco's trip. And in the end, Real Madrid run away with the new Turkish sensation. I'm curious, very curious, of course, to see how it will develop, how he will develop in Madrid. I have my doubts now that I've kind of studied, his case, his positioning, knowing the depth that Madrid has in the midfield.
Did you have those same doubts when he was going to go to Barca?
Well, we don't have we don't. First of all, the terms that Barca were trying to push to Fenerbahce was, and that Fenerbahce were happy with, was he's going to stay one more year on loan with you guys. And as far as I have understood, one of the reasons that Madrid in the end managed to run away with Güler was that they agreed to bringing him into the first team right away. Besides, of course, the increase in money, and them increasing their offer for the Turkish kid, that led him to eventually sign for Los Blancos. So, to answer your question, was I concerned? Well, not really at the time, because the newspapers were reporting that Barca was going to agree to allow him to be on loan with Fenerbahce for another season. So it was like, kind of time to see how he was gonna fit, and next season is a long way away, of course. Meaning the next season,
You're
not
right.
this upcoming one.
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
Yeah. So you filed it away as like for the future, right?
For the future, 100%. So again, I don't know if this is going to be a case of, we've seen it with Madrid in the past so many times at this point, from Reinier. Do I say that right? Reinier. Take Kubo, Odegaard, all these very talented players that came in. That I don't think he's going to have much playing time, Kiyan. Madrid is also a very stacked team in the midfield. Just in the last podcast, we were doing sort of our all-star 11, and in the midfield where we're able to do so many variations, just showing just how deep Madrid and Barca are in that position. So how do you see it, man? Are you happy? Like, is this, obviously you won this battle. The Güler battle has been won by Los Blancos, so that's another check mark for the Madridistas. 100% understand. Again, even though I didn't know this guy a month ago, it's all of a sudden it's like candy in front of your face, and you're like, I want it. And especially if the Blancos come into the scene, you're like, no, he's got to come to us. All of a sudden, it's like, it's funny how it works. I mean, we are just big kids. It's, we all want the same toys if the other person has it, or it's funny that way. But
this is the time. This is what it was. But Diego, this is the trajectory. First, it was he was going to Barca, so all the Barca fans were calling him the Turkish Messi, Arda Güler.
That makes sense.
And then he went to Real Madrid, and at that time, Real Madrid fans were like, whatever, who is this guy? No one cares. No one knows about him.
Yeah.
And then it shifted, and then all of a sudden, the Barca fans were like, man, this guy's overrated.
Fuck this guy.
Real Madrid fans were like, this is the next Ozil. And so it completely shifted the dialogue and how both fans viewed it. Yeah. I've said this many times. I had no idea who this guy was. So when rumors still first broke out, people asked us about it. I was like, I don't know anything about this guy. I've seen the same YouTube compilations you guys have. That's it. Yeah. That's all I know. Then when it became a little bit real, I had to do a little bit more research. I read about him. So I understood a little bit more. And then yesterday when he was officially signed, I actually did a scouting report that I haven't published yet, but watched video, read more, did a deep dive, and I kind of just understood the big picture a little bit more about who he is. The question about your questions are valid. Like, we've seen the examples of Reinier, of Odegaard. I mean, those are two completely different cases. In the case of Reinier was that he just is not good enough. In the case of Odegaard was that he just looked around and was like, I just want to go and play somewhere, guys. There's too many people here. In the case of Kubo, he's, to be fair, he's having a good career at Real Sociedad. And we still have the rights to him if we do want to bring him back. I feel like it's kind of slipping away in some sense, though, but I don't know.
Yeah, you think so? Let's not digress into that. But
well, it's just that like we have a lot of players in that position now, and he's not. Is he? I think he's still non-EU, as far as I remember.
Wow,
which makes it complicated. I think so. That's just off the top of my head. But at any rate, the thing, because you mentioned all the midfielders we have, and what does that mean for Arda Güler? Because he did confirm today in his presentation he's not going out on loan; he's staying.
Yeah.
I don't see the midfield being where he's competing for. We need a right winger, and he is pretty much the only right winger in the squad. So he actually might break through quicker. For that reason alone, is that his specific niche skill set is actually something we need. We need a right winger. He can play that role.
Why do you say you need a right winger?
No, we don't have one. I mean, like, we just don't have.
Dude, just the other day you were putting Rodrigo in your starting All-Star 11.
I still do. But my point is, Rodrigo's not a right winger. He's just someone I want on the field. But he's not like the traditional right winger. He's someone who kind of drifts centrally. He likes to play on the left more. He likes to play in the.
You want somebody that sticks to that position, is glued to the line.
I don't know personally. Like, that's a good question. Also, I don't care about symmetry. I don't think it's necessary to have a pure right winger at all times. This is an overrated concept. When Barca had Messi, everything went through the right. When Real Madrid had Cristiano Ronaldo, I mean, and still now with Vinicius, everything goes to the left. It's just natural that you go where the best players are. So I think it's overrated to have that symmetry. You don't need it. You know, we want a three-peat with Isco and a diamond, you know, with no one on the right wing apart from Carvajal, basically, and Modric, who would go there sometimes. I don't care about that aspect of it. But there are going to be times that it's good to have that skill set available. You'll need that presence. And the good thing is, like, if, God forbid, Rodrigo is injured or can't play or needs to be rested, especially like when he come back from international duty from Brazil, you can just put Güler in there instead of Rodrigo. And it would make sense. So I think for that reason, actually, it'll play in his favor, because apart from Brahim Diaz, who can play on the right wing, we don't really have that profile in the squad. But it is also true that you're probably going to have to play Bellingham there in that position a lot. So there's still a lot of players that you have to divide. But he's going to have his chance. And if he impresses, I think he can break through. And then maybe like by next season, because like I think everyone is under some kind of clear understanding that, okay, Arda Güler is not going to come in and start right away and play all these minutes. But if he impresses in the limited minutes you get next season, then next summer you're at this crossroads where you can kind of sift through and say, okay, Brahim, not great. We don't need Kubo. We'll just sell those guys and we'll just keep Brahim. Or in Kubo's case, you don't trigger the rights. But so there's a chance that he breaks through. I'm not going to speak definitively one way or the other. I also think there's a lot of overhype, in part because we snatched him from Barca, so like the fans are going crazy, right? Maybe he'll be great. Maybe he won't be. We have no idea. So I don't know. I'm very cautious about it. But it is true that he's going to be competing with a lot of players. But it is also true that he is also a right winger who can play in the middle too, and we could use a player like that.
Do you take any issue in the fact that, you know, Fenerbahce released, can't really call it the contract, but say the terms, right? So it was 20 mil fixed, 10 in add-ons, 20% in future transfer rights, and apparently 15 or 20 million to the parents as well. Are you like, considering that this is a player whose buyout clause was 17 million and now it's closer to, you know, like say roughly around 50 mil, is that something that bothers you? Or are you like, look, we needed to get this player, a ton of teams were interested, Barca, our, you know, nearest rival, almost got him. We had to take him away. We have the cash. I've no quarrels or queries with that.
I just feel like it's kind of, I mean, it kind of is annoying that you just have to pay all these fees. Like, it's nothing is straightforward like a transfer fee anymore.
Yeah.
I guess
that's just kind of like, that's how the nature of the beast nowadays.
I just feel like that's just the world we live in. Like, it's just kind of unavoidable at this stage. So I don't know. I don't feel too strongly about it, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess this is just like our, and when I say our, I mean Barca fans' last sort of, you know, last bit of poo that we can throw your way is be like, well, look at all the, look at what you had to pay in the end. It's ridiculous money for a player we never heard about. But,
did you say that Fenerbahce officially released that information?
Yeah, I want to say, or, yeah, I want to say I saw their logo on that piece of paper. Yeah. Or maybe it was Fabrizio that got his hand on it, but I'm
well that's different.
Certain.
If Fabrizio,
but he posted it though, so I mean he wouldn't post that without the okay of Fenerbahce because he would shoot himself in the foot, I would imagine.
I mean, well, yeah, but it's still different. I understand what you're saying, but it's kind of different. If like I thought you meant that Fenerbahce officially posted on their Twitter, which would be totally weird. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's different. I mean, Fabrizio posted, but. He also may be getting that information from anyone, not just Fenerbahce.
Of course. And what about, I'm trying hard here. I hope all the Cule listeners are appreciating the doubt I'm trying to instill into Kiyan's brain here. But what do you make?
You should suggest Lukaku instead.
What do you make of the fact that he was flirting with so many teams, also now, or since a few days, the papers have been reporting just not the fact that so many teams were interested, but this might have gone missing in international news. But here in Spain, Sevilla was almost announcing the player. Like this is a week or two ago, or like 10 days ago. And it looked like he was going to sign for Sevilla. And it was like, holy shit, Sevilla's going to get this kid, the new Turkish sensation. And all of a sudden it was Leipzig and Dortmund. And, and it was like, no, it's done. It's a done deal. He's going to Germany. It's going to be, again, between Leipzig or Dortmund, it's done. And like, do you get a sense that, I mean, no, do you get a sense? No, because it's pretty obvious, but also the fact that Barca have gotten in the mix and they were made to think that it was a done deal. Do you foresee, that's the right way to pose the question, do you foresee any problems heading into the future with a player that is surrounded by money-hungry wolves? And you can say, well, that's everybody. For sure, like let's at least say 99% of the players now are represented by agents, whether parents or third parties, whatever it might be, that are in it for the money and want as much cash as possible. But with cases, I don't know. I mean, the past has shown us, right? I mean, the clearest one for me, like Figo, even before signing with Barca, he had so many red flags already that something like this would eventually happen, his transfer to Real Madrid from Barca, by signing a pre-contract, if you will, with Florentino, that of course became world famous, could have been foreseen given the fact that he had deals in place already when he was still in Portugal and signed with was it Parma and Inter, or Parma and Juve? I don't know. He signed 2 contracts, and that basically Serie A said, look, you cannot come to the Serie A, to the Italian calcio, to the Italian league for the time being, and that allowed Barca to run away with it. So do you understand where I'm going with this?
Yeah, if it's going to cause a problem in the future, look, no one cared that Figo insulted Real Madrid publicly and then almost went to Serie A when he came in and helped us win the league in that first year. No one cared. Yeah. So, I mean, Figo then just fizzled up because he declined, and then he just left unceremoniously, and that was that. But I don't think he himself caused issues later on, partly because he was older. Now, Güler is a little bit younger, but your concern is like, look, this is the way I see it. The timeline matters. It seems that Real Madrid came later in this discussion, after all these clubs you mentioned. And
some say no, huh? Some say that Madrid were in it from the start and they were like cool, calm, collected, and so I don't know. But go on.
I actually would love for that to be true, because it just proves that no one knows anything. Like no one reported this of Real Madrid being, no one like on the Madrid side of things that I've seen anyway. I think is just a different beast when Real Madrid make the offer, because all those teams you mentioned, Sevilla, Dortmund, Leipzig, they don't have the prestige that Real Madrid has, and I think Real Madrid were probably willing to meet those fees that were being requested, whereas the other teams weren't. And I don't really know what happened in the Barca situation, because Barca is obviously a big club, but Barca's financial situation is such that they have to be a little bit more frugal when people are demanding agent fees and father fees from them. It's very possible that if this was Bartomeu, you would have signed Arda Güler.
We would have signed him for 70 mil or something.
He would have been wrote a check for his own house. Say, here's my house. Here's my daughter's house.
100%.
I can't afford it. Later on, the club will be bankrupt. But yeah, anything you want. I think Laporta probably is a bit more frugal in that sense for this particular thing, because, Yeah. Also, let's be honest, it's Arda Güler and not I don't know, Neymar. It's not he seems he's a very talented player, promising for the future, but this is not someone that for years people have been we literally, everyone found out about this guy a month ago, right?
It's crazy that. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I love it. Everyone has become an instant Arda Güler expert as well. I always find that amazing. I'm like, wow. Where
social media really has
where are you guys
changed,
throughout the season?
You just see so many weirdos.
And I'm not just talking about social media. I'm talking about professional journalists, that are just defining him to perfection, or saying this is like a fit here. He plays like this and play. And I'm like, wow.
Well, look, here's the thing, though.
Where were all these guys during the season? Couldn't you give us a heads up sooner with this amazing talent? That part of the reason we see social media has exposed a lot of people, and it's just chaos. Social media is just chaos now. It's just basically a burning forest of just crazy takes everywhere. But while we did only hear about this guy, look, I'm sure people knew about him. Obviously, all the Turkish football fans knew about this guy. He's playing with the Turkish national team already. Everyone knows him in the specific circles. It's just that us, ignorant over here covering Real Madrid and Barcelona, we didn't know about him. Sorry. Yeah.
But despite that, despite the fact that we only found out about him a month ago, it is also true, Diego, that he is great within the context of where he's playing right now. That's indisputable. This past year, The Athletic put out a great article about it and basically outlined all of his numbers. He dominates the Turkish league in every offensive category. He doesn't score many goals, but from the creative standpoint, setting people up, dribbling, everything, he's top of the charts. It's just a question of, how does this translate to a higher level? What does this mean? What we do know now is that he is actually really great within the context of his league. That's irrefutable. What is less known is we've seen a lot of young players dominate either their age group or their specific leagues, but then now we need to see how it'll translate to a higher level. That's it.
Yeah. And another, what I don't understand is that Barca have had two, rising Turkish talents in their squad in the last, 5 years or so. There was Demir.
Yeah.
And oh fuck, I'm gonna blank on the other kid's name. Demir and it'll come to me. Both players that didn't work out have had to move on, and who came at a very young age. My point, the reason for bringing this up is that you're hearing Güler all over the place, and he's being touted as the best Turkish talent of the last century. Those are massive words. Why is he only being talked about now? I mean, I'm going back a little bit to where we were talking about before, but why didn't Barca scout this player in particular, as opposed to the likes of Demir and the other Turkish kid that didn't work out? Because, I mean, if you have to take the word of the experts, if you will, and I'm reading some of a Turkish, this is a Turkish journalist who goes by the name of Lara Karakan. She's saying that profile-wise, he would be a better fit for Barca with his technical abilities because of his one-touch play, his agility.
Why is that specific to Barca?
He's not so much a player that typically that possesses that typical speed that a right winger that you look for in a right winger, that maybe when you talk about traditional right wingers that Real Madrid are looking for. And then she goes on to mention the competition he has in the positions that he'll be playing for. Well, there's certain players that fit characteristically a team better, the same that certain coaches would fit clubs better because of their playing philosophy. I think this is just more about
it's because of Messi. I mean, right? This is basically the reason this perception exists is because Messi occupied that position and played that kind of football. Like Güler is slower. He's not as fast. Like he's not like a Gareth Bale type of player. He's slower.
Yeah.
Similar to Ozil in that sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's go through. Who would he be competing with at Barca? Rafinha, Dembele, and he is a completely different winger than those two. It'd be interesting to see how Xavi would. Ultimately, I don't think it was. Yeah, I think it probably came down to money, and then the point that you brought up earlier about the loan.
Yeah.
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 I don't. Every player has to come to a club presentation and say, basically, this was, no other club. This is, obviously they have to say that every presentation.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of cases, it's, obviously they just have to say that, but really they just look around and say, okay, I look at the financial offer, the playing time offer, etc. And that's the decision that it comes down to. So for whatever reason, Real Madrid fit that criteria better than, for him, better than any other club. So,
well, let's see. It'll be curious to see his adaptation and his time at Madrid, and may he be another disaster. Moving on.
Well, no, hold on. We actually have to move on to part 2 now. So, because we did 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there.
Wow.
So
time flies, eh?
Time flies. Listeners, you got the tip of the iceberg right here. Part 2 is over on patreon.com/Churros y Tácticas. Our patrons have sent in really juicy questions that will break Diego's brain. So if you want access to that, go over to patreon.com/Churros y Tácticas. Diego, I will literally see you in 5 seconds. Peace out.